Ashton, if you want to let us know when you think we've got everyone on, as I know I can see people populating. So we've got Ashton managing our back end, getting everyone in and going to be sharing any questions. So I just want to welcome everyone to our leadership hustle, our human resources leadership hustle for the last one of 22. I can't believe that we are already halfway through November, and I think appropriate to the topic in regards to what can we do to help, reduce stress, create get people laughing and having a little fun while at work and helping, also helping each other reduce some stress. So we're going to let everyone still get logged on. I want to make sure before we get started with introductions that people have had a chance to get in, and we'll give it definitely a couple more minutes. And Ashton, if you want to shout out to us as soon as you think it's a good time to start, that would be great.
I think we're in. We got a couple people trickling in, but I think everyone's on.
Okay, perfect. And just a note real quick, out in chat, Ashta has placed the program guide, the workbook that we have out there. So if you did not download it from your email this morning, go ahead and get that downloaded. It has information about our great presenters today from the panel. And there's some tips on there that Jean has left as well for you to take away and some things you can share with your group. But with that being said, thank you, Ashta. Real quick, I just want to get us started. I am Michelle from Revela, and we are hosting the HR Leadership Hustle for the final one in 2022. We're going to be focusing on our panel is going to be providing us some insights and some tips and some things to think about as we are really just navigating through the holidays. The holidays, we would hope they're supposed to be a time for all of us, right? And for us all to enjoy those moments. But as we are all balancing, I'm going to say juggling all the different balls that we all take care of from day to day, whether it's personal to professional, times get a little stressful. And I wanted to pull a group together to kind of lean on a little bit, to kind of learn a little more about what are some of those things either we've seen help with the environment at work. What are those things that we can do that livens it up a little bit, helps each other, helps us lean on each other, and really kind of maybe learn a little bit about what we can do ourselves as well on how to manage our stress at the same time. So to get started, I'd like to do introductions. So for our panelists, if you could just let us know your name, where do you spend your day, where are you at, and just tell us a little fun fact, something interesting about yourself that maybe a lot of people don't know. And I will start with Beth Sweeney. We'll go ahead and start with you, and then we'll go to Jean, and then Beth from Chatterkick. So we'll kind of go in that order. If you guys just want to step in after the other person, that would be great. Okay.
That's wonderful. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to spend this time with you today. My name is Beth Sweeney, and I lead a learning and development team at LinkedIn right now. And it is a super fun job. We have global trainers. And so I'm learning about other cultures. I'm learning about social media. So lots of fun stuff in my current role. And something fun about me, I don't know if this is fun, but this is noteworthy for our call today. But I started my career in retail management. So if you are looking to stress yourself out in the months of November and December, sign right up for that job. So that was something I think it was so foundational for me as a leader of how do you motivate folks when times are super stressful and like business is critical. So I would say that like that foundational leadership experience kind of shaped how I lead teams in stressful times. So I will hand it over to Jean.
All right. Well, thank you. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. Also excited to have some time to visit with you today. I am the director of the Best Care Employee Assistance Program. We are affiliated with Methodist Health System, and we contract with employers really all over the country and provide short-term counseling to employees and their dependent family members on the premise that when an employee is struggling with a personal issue or a mental health issue, it certainly interferes with their job performance or their ability to be productive and healthy. So we have about 375 different clients that we serve all over the country. And as you can well imagine, we've been a little busy these days. We've really seen some trending and some changes in trends in terms of mental health and how it affects the workplaces. And I'm sure you're all very much aware of as well. So I forgot to pre-think about the interesting fact about myself. I guess probably anymore. What's interesting about me is that I've been here at Methodist working in EAP services for over 30 years. So, which is very unusual these days because people switch jobs quite frequently. So, love it here. I love what we do. I'm passionate about it, and also excited to hear from the other two Beths today. So, Beth, I will pass it on to you.
Awesome. Well, nice to meet everybody today. My name is Beth Trejo. I'm the CEO and founder of Chatterkick. Chatterkick is a social first, so a social media agency that really helps brands and businesses get a competitive advantage on the internet. And we do that through internal communications like employee engagement, employee recruitment, as well as external communications, websites, marketing tactics, social media marketing. And a fun fact about me is I have, between my husband and I, who also works in Chatterkick, I think we've started 5 businesses, sold 2, and bought 1, all within the span of 7 years-ish. So we've had a lot of transactions happen in those times, one of which was a business in the Philippines. So also, if you want to create some stress in your life, open a business overseas. In a country you've never been.
That'll do it.
Yeah, that could definitely elevate the stress for sure. So as we're covering what not to do.
Got a good list going.
Yes, as you all think of some of those, make sure you add those in during our time together today. So as you know, we're going to be an hour. We'll be wrapping up at 1 o'clock. We'll try to wrap up the questions a little before 1. So if things are coming up, if you're thinking of some things for the audience that you want to make sure that you get a chance to get that in front of our panel, please use the chat. Ashta's going to be watching that. So please use that chat and put those questions in there as well. Well, Jean, I want to dive into you because you live in this world. I mean, we all live obviously in this world, but when it comes to helping others with stress, what do you think, from your perspective and obviously from your years of experience, but I want to say probably even most recently, maybe some trends that you're noticing, what causes the most angst for folks over the holidays?
Well, the interesting thing in that is to remember that it's not the same for each of us. It's different. And so there's no right way to be stressed and no wrong way to be stressed. And also, interestingly enough, as I was pulling my thoughts together, I started looking at the lists of things that create stress for me. And typically, for most of us, they're also the things that bring joy. So those things that we get excited about and that we're all excited about the holidays typically. But those kinds of things that we do in preparation for the holidays also bring us stress. So whether that's, holiday party planning and meal planning and, which also involves party going, which means we typically eat too much, drink too much, don't sleep enough, to the financial burdens of, spending on gifts and where that takes us and where our head goes with those kinds of things. And then the other thing I picked today is kind of a topic or classic thing that stresses a lot of folks out is managing those special people in our lives that have a tendency to bring us stress. When we talk about those things, I want you to remember that stress is not an event. It's not a person. It's not a thing. It's not your checkbook or your check card right now. Stress is not any of that. Stress is how we choose to react to that event, that person, that time in our lives. And that's kind of nice to know because a lot of stuff happens to us and for us every day that we have no control over. Right? Stuff happens, whether it's traffic, whether it's those special people that enter our lives, come and go, or whatever it is, but we can control our responses and reactions to that. So number one, we have to know what those things are and then when our reaction is occurring and what we can do about it. And then also remember that not all stress is bad. Stress is actually a good thing. God gave us stress to get our adrenaline going, right? Okay, when I'm stressed, I always say, I joke, I say there's nothing more motivating than the last minute. I say that tongue in cheek because I like to work ahead, but adrenaline, stress produces adrenaline, and that helps us to get stuff done. But if you function in that mode all day long, every day, it starts to wear on you physically and emotionally. So recognizing what it is and what it is for you. I mean, I get stressed out thinking about preparing a big meal, but Michelle may love it. I mean, she maybe thrives in the kitchen and loves to prepare a big meal for the more people, the better. So it's different for everybody, and that's okay.
Okay, and I love how you reminded us, because I think we know this, but yet I think we forget it often, that it is a choice how we respond, anything in life, right? It's always a choice. What's my response going to be? And I like that idea of identifying what might be some of those common stressors that I'm aware of, right? We all know what they are. And I like to think about how do I choose to respond versus letting myself react in that sense. And with that idea or those concepts, what are I guess maybe some suggestions or maybe some info on when we're choosing that choice, right? What are some things that kind of catch us in the moment or help us be more effective with choosing how we're going to respond versus allowing our emotions to take charge and run? Where do you go with that?
That's a big one. And that takes a lot of self-awareness, I believe. It's really easy to get caught up. And now I'll give you a really good example of, I'm looking out my windows here in my office, traffic. I maybe left the office a little bit too late or left home this morning a little bit too late. And now there's a traffic jam, and any person who does something stupid in traffic makes me angry. It is what it is, right? So catch yourself in the moment. And when we talk about holiday gatherings, maybe you find Aunt Martha to be incredibly irritating, but Aunt Martha's going to be at the Christmas party, right? She's going to be at the family Christmas party. So know that about yourself, realize it, and how can you mentally and emotionally prepare yourself for dealing with Aunt Martha or Uncle John, who always starts talking politics. And it is what it is. People irritate one another. We don't always like to admit that, but knowing which folks those are and which ones are really good at pushing our buttons. And maybe it's the sibling. I mean, siblings are really good at understanding how to push each other's buttons. So knowing that and practicing in your head and your heart how you're going to respond when those things occur. Somebody says something that really gets your goat, you take a deep breath and you go, well, that's interesting.
That's a good response. Well, that's interesting. Okay, good. Well, Beth from Chatterkick, kind of just spinning a little bit from some of that information that Jean was sharing. What are, when thinking about the social media, kind of going into, I know a lot of our audience here is with human resources, and what are things that, how can they utilize social media in a way for, it could be obviously external, because I know a lot of people think of social media as external, but I know as well that you all do coaching with that internal too. What are some of your suggestions or things that you've seen with ideas on how we can utilize social media over the holidays to help reduce some of that stress?
Yeah, I think one thing that just the first thing that everyone can do is just to be aware of what's happening right now. And I think social media can be an amazing thing, but it also can be extremely ugly. And when you're talking to what Jean was saying about resilience and stress, that a picture of somebody's living room can trigger someone else's sadness, fear, FOMO, all of these things. And so it's really important to help your teams and your employees understand that life isn't what it really looks like. A good reminder to us all that this stuff isn't always curated and perfect, and everybody's life is a little bit messy. I think is really important because it does tend to be exaggerated on the holidays, whether that's, moments when someone isn't there, or they passed away, or they have a toxic relationship. And so I think that's one thing to just, again, notice and have conversations about that kind of, factor. Like, it seems like you're getting really stressed. Like, what things are you doing in your life that may be adding to that? Because some people, being on Instagram is the worst mental health thing for them ever. Other people, it's like their biggest joy. And it can be both, but I think it's a matter of, again, self-awareness and helping, especially people that may not know themselves very well, understand that maybe this is exaggerating your trauma, your problems, your feelings, and it's not a good spot for you to be at personally. I think that's just a conversation to have. The other side of that from a professional perspective is really, if you do have people that you're like, well, I can't have those conversations with my employees, I have too many of them, et cetera, really helping to show the good. And sometimes I think we can drown out the bad with the good. And that is a matter of like showing support for others. Are there other people online that you can amplify, lift their voices up? Support, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's a giving opportunity, whether it's someone who may need your help. I'm not talking about politics stuff. I'm talking about like human nature and human connection. How can you as a team support that and support each other? One of the best proven tactics on social when it comes to employee engagement is interacting with each other online just as much as offline. It crosses departments, it supports teams, and almost the platforms are built for positive likes and acknowledgement. So it kind of can help build that culture a little bit. And gives people attention, which they crave. So that's where I would start, being aware and then using it. And as the HR leader, just interact, go on LinkedIn, comment, share, add some thoughts. This is a really great article. Thanks for sharing. Have them share your company stuff. There's a lot of collaboration that can happen online.
Good. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I like your spin there. Well, and then just kind of taking it from that social media to kind of I want to say, that's at LinkedIn, more of a manager, or how in your area you've seen other areas or departments supported through the holidays. What are some items that you can share that managers do that have fun during the holidays to kind of liven things up and so forth?
For sure. Okay. So while I'm going to give you, I'd love to talk theoretical. Here's some good ideas you can do. And I also want to give you practical, actual activities we've done. But while I am going through a few of these, will you put in the chat if you have some sort of hybrid team situation with your HR group or with your employees? Because I feel like that's the biggest challenge with connecting with folks and having fun with folks. Some people, you might have 2 people that are together in an office, and you might have 6 that are working from home. And how do we engage them all in the way that we want to when their setup is so different? And I don't see that. People are just responding. I can't wait to see. I don't see that changing in the near future. I think the flexibility of work is hopefully here to stay, and so how we connect with folks will be pretty adaptable with that. So number 1, I love to have fun at work, probably almost to a fault. I am an Enneagram 7. I'm a number 1 woo. I really like to make things quite lively. And what I have learned is that people don't think the same things I think are fun. And so when I think about what Jean's talking about, where, gosh, there's so much pressure at the holidays, it could be that your folks, for you to throw a themed secret Santa party that everyone had to bring a cookie to, that everybody had to think of a unique exchange gift, that might actually add to it. So I want to encourage you to really speak to your teams ahead of time and say, gosh, what does sound fun this year? Is this a year that we need to be more low key, and we're going to support each other by sending a Teams message that says happy holidays? And that's great. That would be a wonderful way for us to celebrate each other. Or do we want to get together? Do we want to have a meal together? Do we want to have a party? I think asking people what sounds fun to them is really critical as we are planning for the holidays. Okay, I see a lot of primary in office, a couple in different office locations, some people fully remote. So we're all over the board on the call. Great. Not one answer for you guys. Some things that I will share. So I started working at LinkedIn, which I think is a company that is doing hybrid so well. So I am going to share some fun things that my team has done there. We did something over the summer. There's a website called Snackbox where you can set a budget. You can let your team pick out whatever they think sounds delicious, and it sends it to their house. It's a global. Again, I like that it's the budget, and I like that it's individual. So people, again, not every snack sounds good to everybody. If you send cookies and people are diabetic, like, so that's a really fun one. In my past life, we had so much fun with like holiday games. You can do anything trivia online. You can do anything Pictionary online. All those things are pretty hilarious if you're doing holiday themed things. So I do think there's fun ways to engage your team, whether you have dollars to spend on it or whether you need to scrape something together like a homemade Pictionary game to make your team laugh. There's lots of options out there. So I hope, and I'm sure we'll do some follow up. I'll send some of those links of those things like the snack boxes and stuff like that. I'm happy to share that too.
Awesome, Beth. And it's interesting. There is a company, and I don't know the name of it, out of Lincoln, and you can do custom. I just don't know if there's a quantity, but custom little boxes for people.
Yeah,
and
it's so thoughtful. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and some of I believe one of them it's something that's everything that's made in Nebraska as well. Now, of course, that's a budget, right? So, but just having having some different things out there, I think is
right.
definitely a good thing. Well, Jean, I'm going to kind of go back down. I want to go back to and ask you, when we think about expectations that we hold on ourselves, what is your advice on helping people set real expectations? Because I know I'm guilty of that when it comes to what I say yes to versus what I say no to, right? And not really thinking about it. The next thing I know, I've said yes to too many things, and I've created that stress because I didn't slow down probably to say I can't right now or not a good time, right? What might be some things there? Because I'm sure there's other people similar to myself that need to say no a little more often at times too.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, you hit on a really good one, Michelle. In the counseling world, the counselors will call that boundaries. But you can't have boundaries unless you set them ahead of time. And not boundaries in a cruel sense. You know what I mean? I think sometimes people take it a little too far. You have to think of your own well-being and your family's well-being, and because how many times also does it happen we get too busy, too over-involved, and then you get sick, then the kids get sick, and then we want to go home to grandpa and grandma's, but we're all sick, and and it just is a snowball thing. And being able to think ahead and come up with a few of those boundaries ahead of time, and even some ways to say no if it is really hard for you to say no. Thank you so much for the invitation. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it this year. And you don't have to have an excuse. I think so many of us think I can't come because maybe I don't have anything on my calendar already. And it's still okay to say thanks, but no thanks. Again, knowing your own physical and emotional capacity, especially during the holidays and all the other stuff that's going on. I think it can really, really be important. Other things too, as far as expectations, again, I think what's really important is staying in the moment. I say we a lot of times, and I'm really talking about me. So I'm preaching to myself here, I guess, is what I really want to emphasize, is that my mind races forward to all the things I have to do, all the things that have to get done. So focusing on in the moment, especially when those special holiday occasions and arise, and those people maybe we don't get to see all the time, but staying in the moment and really enjoying those activities. So whether, again, it's a holiday party at work or an online party we're going to have, just being in the moment, enjoying the relationship. And that's another thing I focus on too, as far as even helping staying in the moment, is appreciating the relationship. I think oftentimes we do so many things that we don't think about how it's going to affect the relationship down the road. especially again, to the people that are most important to us. So think about how is this going to affect the relationship? Again, not from a customer client standpoint necessarily always, but really those people that really mean the most, as you've all heard over and over and over again. People on their deathbed usually don't say, gosh, I wish I would have spent more time working. They're going to say, gosh, I wish I would have spent more time with the people that I loved, telling them how much I appreciate them. So, and that's another, be mindful and then be appreciative. It's real easy to take things for granted over the holidays and just rush, but be appreciative for the little things, the big things, every opportunity, every day is an opportunity to be thankful. What are you grateful for? If you struggle with it overall, even if the holidays bring depression or anxiety for you, start a gratitude journal. If you don't already have one, I'd encourage everyone to do it. Have a gratitude journal. And I don't mean, I'm grateful for my family, my spouse, my mom. I mean, get in the weeds. What are you really grateful for? I'm grateful for this opportunity I have today to be on this webinar. Feel a little rusty because I don't get to do these very often, but I'm grateful for that. So I'm focusing on the good rather than, oh my gosh, I'm rusty. I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm stressed. But you know, be appreciative and also persevere during the holidays. This too shall pass. You know, so whatever you're going into with the holidays, what's on your mind, this too shall pass. Be resilient, as Beth already said. Stick with it. Get those gifts wrapped. Don't procrastinate. So you're up until 2 o'clock in the morning on New Year or Christmas Eve wrapping gifts. You know, those kinds of things. Just focus on the reward. As I mentioned earlier, cooking for a large group of people can stress me out. But I really enjoy that when everyone's together around the table. And that's what I need to focus on. Not that, you know, whether I make the mashed potatoes right or not, or whether my mother-in-law is going to like them or not. I can't focus on that. I have to focus on the fact that a meal brings people together and I enjoy that. So that's what juices me up over the holidays versus thinking about all those little things on my to-do list that I need to mark off. So looking at it with positivity, and that also includes giving each other grace.
Really good, really good.
Boom.
Yeah.
We're not a very grace-giving society right now. We're very non-grace-giving society. We've turned into something that's very, as we all know, divided amongst big things, and which leads to division amongst little things too. So, as I mentioned, giving people grace, not letting little things irritate you, and understanding what little things are and what big things are.
Yes. And Jean, that we talk a lot about when going coaching with employees. It's the whole concept when you're leading your teams about believe in good intentions. You know, I joke with the group, but I'm like, you know, people don't get up to, you know, how can I make, you know, Michelle's life miserable?
Right.
That's not their goal, I'm pretty sure. You know, but, you know, when things happen, so we personalize it, and it's all of a sudden, which had probably nothing to do with us, we assign to ourselves, right? That meaning. So giving that grace, when you said that, it just kind of clicked the whole, that belief, they have good intentions, you know, it's not personal, it's not about me, let me just move on and let it go, right?
Right.
Is I think helpful. And I also like the one thing you had said was the dinner, right? It's the why behind what you're doing. Focus on that why and enjoy that, because I'm 100%, I get wrapped up in the details and perfecting it and making sure everything is just perfect, right? And then by the time I actually get to it, I'm probably, yes. and where can I get a drink as quick as possible? Maybe. Never. But yeah, yes, focusing on the why. What's the why behind it? Which I could see maybe being a good activity too, if you have with your family, talking about why we're doing what we're doing and helping remind each other, because I could probably use that reminder at times. Well, and kind of spinning off from that, Beth at Chatterkick, I'm thinking, you know, with some of these tips that Jean's, you know, provided, but just in general, how can the organizations utilize social media to get information out or to do little things to liven it up or have fun with it within their team? What might be some things that you've seen or you might recommend?
Well, I think one thing is if you are doing an on-site Christmas party, or it's a virtual Christmas party, or if it's just a trivia day, document it, because those are the type of content pieces that always work. People want real people in their photos, in videos. They want screenshots of Zoom calls. They want behind the scenes look. So don't try to make it too big of a thing. One thing that we see, especially in the HR field, is that all of these HR representatives are asked to be digital marketers, or they're asked to do all of these other things. So the plates get full very, very quickly. And so if you can't do all the things, which most people can't, be the broker. Think about that in terms of like, how can you connect people with resources? They could be little resources to say, hey, Michelle, I know you love taking pictures of just in the moment. You are like always the person that's like, here, no, over here, smile, smile. For this, you just be our photographer. Just document what we have, put it in this Dropbox file, and good to go, right? That way that takes that off of you. Now you can send that to marketing. Marketing can get it out there, or you can post it on LinkedIn or Instagram, wherever your platform of choice is. But I do think that sometimes we try to overdo it, especially because it's so big. This is not just a one-person show to do social media or to be even in the internal communications. There's a lot that goes into that. So the more that you can bring other people to the table, it will take that off of you, which will decrease your stress. And honestly, when other people get involved, we all know they take ownership of it, right? So they're going to share it, they're going to like it, they're going to comment on it so much more. And I mean, kudos to LinkedIn, because they have some amazing company tools that actually let you see when your employees are interacting and engaging. It's one of the only platforms that has that visibility. And so leverage it. It's free.
Good to know. I don't know, Beth.
I learned that also today, just now.
Yeah, you can, it's really interesting. So on LinkedIn, if you are an admin of the company page, which honestly, if you're in the HR spot, that's a really good role for you to be on that company page, but it shows you when your employees are interacting. And it's especially if you have enough employees. If you only have a couple, it's a little bit trickier to get it to function appropriately. But if you have a lot of employees, it will show you what they're sharing. It will also allow you to send content like a post from your company page, and then you can click notify employees. So all of a sudden now you have a crew of advocates that will get a notification in their feed that you as the company posted. So that platform itself has just a really great opportunity, but you can take the same strategies of, making sure that your employees know when you post and, hey, I just posted a picture of you, Michelle, on Instagram, go, share it if you're so inclined. Little things like that make a big difference.
Yeah, good. No, that is really helpful. That's like, didn't know I could do that.
What a great platform to check out, everyone.
Hey, there's a million pieces to it. I don't know them all either.
Well, as I kind of just moving over to that with LinkedIn, Beth, what are things that maybe you have seen the managers, I know your time has been kind of short, but what are some things that maybe you've seen managers utilizing in a way to, when I'm thinking of stress, I'm thinking reducing the stress, right? Part of that's just it's the relationships with your people,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
And how are they utilizing, whether it's social media or something internal, something that you guys are doing, but to have those one-on-ones, those check-ins, and those are things they could be doing. So what are some things that you might notice managers doing that's helping with that? And then especially as we lean into these times too, right? As it starts getting a little more hectic, right?
Yeah, so I did a presentation like the summer when COVID was like peaking, and it was all about like how are we handling COVID in these different industries. And I visited with a pediatric, I think it was a gentleman that was doing like his fellowship, so he was like in the weeds on that. And I asked him like how are like medical professionals supporting each other during this like incredibly hard time? And his answer was like, our support of each other predated COVID. So we didn't start doing it when the stressful time began. It was really something that was in place beforehand. And that has stuck with me, folks, since hearing that, like our support of each other predated the stress. And so I know that we are almost in the holidays, so it's not helpful for me to say like you should have started a long time ago, but I want to encourage you that if you have like good communication practices, we meet as a group, we meet individually, there's ways to connect formally, there's ways to chat informally. All those are so good. And so what I want to encourage you during the holidays is don't overcorrect. And I feel like Jean's like, I'm mostly saying this to myself, like if I think people are stressed, so I ping them daily and ask if they're stressed, like I'm probably just doubling down on like, holy smokes, now I got a leader that doesn't trust me, that could come off totally wrong. And so I think that, clarity is so kind. So as we're coming into these months saying, this is what's important towards the end of the year, this is what we need to finish before we enjoy our holidays, this is what, we really need to be in lockstep on. I think, of course, sharing those things so openly as you come in, and then not overcorrecting. So we don't need daily check-in. Maybe you do need daily check-ins. Maybe that was your support coming into the fourth quarter. But for my team, I feel like that would increase our stress rather than fix it. So I think that that's something to think about, is like, what does our support of each other look like pre-fourth quarter? And how do we really carry that into this time so that we know this works. We know this is proven that people respond when we communicate in this way, and then not derailing from that when times get hard. So I think that is what I have seen work the best. I
think that's really, really good, Beth, because, as we're talking about the holidays, for some organizations, it's also maybe their fiscal year ending too, right?
Absolutely.
Not every, but there's a good percent of, right? So they're
an accountant in your life. God bless them, right?
Yes, exactly. And, so we're balancing the workload of what's happening, and not to mention in the human resource world, whether they are going through benefits,
open enrollment. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yes, the open enrollment, if they're union, sometimes, and I know that may vary, but you might have negotiations going on with those contracts, a lot of other things that are building up. So the thing I heard you say was, kind of reflect a little bit and think about what has been my pulse, how do I keep, in check with everyone, right? Ensuring that I'm clear, there's clarity, but how and not overcorrecting. And I even think those at times could be, making sure that we are checking in too, to see how are they doing between everything that's going on as we're approaching the end of year, wanting to make sure our intentions come through, that we are wanting to make sure that, yes, we need to get things done as a business, but we have a lot going on personally, maybe a little more than normal. And for some people, it might not be a lot more than normal too.
So true.
I think.
I think that goes back to just as much as it is appropriate, knowing what's important to your people. So like, to your point, Michelle, like, is this a hard time of year for them? Is this a busy time of year? Do they have 10 kids, Christmas program things they are sorting out, or are they trying to fill the time because their family lives far away? So I do think that's so critical. And whether it's communication or how you want to celebrate, I think knowing your folks as much as you can really helps us make good decisions as leaders. So
Yes. And Beth and Chad, I agree. Did you have something that you were popping up that you were thinking, you just kind of leaned in a little bit? So I wasn't for sure if something sparked your thoughts there.
No, I echo that. I think, everybody is so different. And I think, one of the trends we've been seeing over the last 2 to 3 years in marketing is personalization, right? Like when you feel like you are so known and heard by a brand, you will buy. B2B, B2C doesn't matter. But the other side of the coin is we're seeing that same thing in HR, that personalization. And that's exactly what Beth was saying about those customized boxes, about flexibility, about pace of work, compensation philosophy, all of these things. We are so varied as people. And when the talent war really went crazy, people were doing whatever they could to keep their individuals and team members. And so I think a lot of organizations have gotten some really strong frameworks in place, which is all centered on personalization. And from a very simple version of that is what we always used to do. It's like, we got to know each other, right? Like you knew what was important to your team. But I think with technology, with scale, with digital, all of that stuff kind of fragmented things. So I do think that there's been some form of boomerang back, especially from an employee standpoint of like, this is actually what matters. Like compensation, sure, that's important. But what's really important is that I feel like I belong. I feel like I can accomplish something and I feel accomplished, and that I enjoy, or there's a purpose behind what I'm trying to do. Like those three trends are really, really going strong right now in what employees are saying.
Which I like to hear that because it aligns with some of the things that we talk about as well. So, well, and just kind of again going back to who our audience is. So a lot of times we are going to have our human resources. Sometimes they're the one person for the organization, right? Sometimes, depending on which company they're with, sometimes it's a very large group. It's many, many people. I'm just thinking, Beth, in your guys' world, there's lots of people, right? But there's lots of companies in the metro area that Haram supports, that a lot of times it is that one person, maybe one and at 1.5, kind of scenario. So I'm going to throw this question out there, and I know we haven't talked about it, but from the perspective of where it's just that 1.5 people that's responsible for really making a lot of the people side of the business function. There's the managers, they don't have a lot of control over, right, necessarily, but the managers are the ones that have that direct impact. There's things that human resources can do from that little bit of that distance, outside of them building those relationships, but individually, right? But again, they're only one person and there's all these people. So at that manager, supervisor level, what ideas, if you were in their role, what would be something you might do to capitalize on your manager, supervisor audience that can help them help their people?
Ooh, I just have a thought before your last question was so good, Michelle, but what I was thinking right up to that point, I have so much empathy for HR, and I'm not technically in it anymore, but boy, is it a really hard job. So we don't have everyone with cameras on, but I would like to look into your eyes and say, like, we get it. We know that this is a big deal. And so when I think about HR, it makes me think of flying on a plane where they say, like, you have to put your own oxygen mask on before you put it on others. And I think that is like, there's no truer area for that than HR, because the amount of things that just come at you and boy, it could be devastating news that your employee has that you are now helping them with, or it can be as simple as like a petty fight that somehow you are now also helping them with. So like you guys take it all in. So finding ways to take care of yourself, and I think engaging the managers to help you is a huge step to that. But I also think of, like, if you are one of those folks that it's just you, like, please take advantage of the Haram network or the Revela network of folks, because there are others who understand that perspective too. And I'm thinking of one year I was helping with a layoff, which is, nobody likes that, right? And it was all over the country. So I had to dial down the phone, and someone paid for me to get a manicure so that my hands would look nice as I had to dial those numbers. And so again, nobody gets that except for people in your field. So if that's hard for you, like, maybe that's your goal, is to reach out to some others that do similar work to you, just so that you are not on your own. Because as I look at, like, the fourth quarter is stressful as it is, but if it's just you, like, what are some ways you can take care of yourself as you are navigating that? But Michelle's question was also really good. I just wanted to throw that out there before we got into the weeds on that one.
No, and I'm so glad that your mind went there, because that is so true. I love the whole plane analogy. That one. So, well, and I'll, Beth, since you just spoke, I'll let you think just a few minutes on that next question. Jean, kind of capitalizing in your world, and some of your experiences, what might be some things that, some thoughts that you have on that question?
Where my mind went is, you've got your HR 1 or 1.5 persons. You need that team of collaborators, your management, your leaders within your organization, to be on the same page with you. And of course, I believe strongly in making sure your leaders and managers are trained, have leadership training. We see so often, all the time yet, and I've said this, like I said, I've been in this business for a long time, and I've been saying this for years, and we still see it. People get promoted into management positions because they've been good at their jobs technically. When someone moves into management, it's not a promotion, it's a job change. And we have to give people the tools to manage. So that includes doing some of that HRE stuff that our HR folks do every day. That is giving them the tools to have those conversations. How are you? Are you doing okay today? How is your family? How is your daughter doing in basketball this year? I mean, just in developing those relationships, we constantly see managers struggle because they don't know how to develop those relationships or why they should. So when you're talking about how to surround yourself with people that can help you care for your workforce, that's where you need to pull those people in to help you and get them some training, help them be successful. However you go about that and do that, but not everybody is naturally equipped with the soft skills. And it's so powerful in helping people understand they belong, they have purpose, all those things we've already talked about. So absolutely critical.
Thank you. Well, and Beth from Chatterkick, I know Beth, not only are you, you hang out in the whole social media world, but you also own your own businesses, right? So you're wearing a lot of the different hats. And for one of those, sometimes it is a little bit of that HR hat. And what are we doing? So I don't know if your answer kind of comes maybe from that perspective, or where your thoughts were going when I threw that question out there. But if you want to go ahead and share what are some ideas or thoughts you have for the audience.
So one thing that we did that may help, and I'm putting myself in the shoes of like a 1.5 HR person, that maybe you have rules and barriers that you can't stand up task committees, blah, blah, blah. Like you're basically like kind of have to get scrappy with things. I would pull it like a group, not a formal task force, whatever, of like 3 to 4 people that are naturally extremely positive and supportive, and just identify one thing every day that each one of you can do that says thank you or recognizes someone on small and big things. We did this, and we tend to do this if we get like just a little bit flat in our culture, where we feel like, man, everybody just feels like they're down. Like, we'll kind of stand this up in the background. Super easy. It's literally like, hey, I saw that you posted this on Instagram about this new recipe. Like, tell me about it. Like, that looks amazing. You're a great cook. Or it could be something like, hey, thank you so much for saving my butt the other day on that project that we were supposed to, that I had to go take my kids to the doctor. Like, thank you so much. Those moments of celebration, recognition, and honestly, just thank you will go so far in your organization, even if it's a huge organization. So I think thank you means a lot.
Yes. And if I'm hearing you correctly, Beth, like that little group that you pull together, I'm thinking of those natural influencers.
Yeah, they're like little influencers.
Yes, not necessarily a title, right? Just
right.
People who lift
Yes.
other people. Okay, good.
Yeah, you don't want to like pick the person that's already a little bit grumpy. Like, you want to pick those, we all know
stretch assignment for someone.
Yeah, those people that are always just like the light in the office, they get energized by that, by helping to lift other people up, and other people usually are very receptive to those personality types. Again, even if they don't work with them directly, it doesn't have to be a direct report, it doesn't have to be cross collaboration. It can just be like, hey, this is cool. I see you. This is like, thank you for doing that. And how we did it, we basically just every 4 days. So there's 4 of us, and we just said, I put a task every 4th day, little reminder, like give a star, right? So it was something a little bit like no one else knew about. And then I would just make it a point to go around to different people and have conversations or thank them or acknowledge them. And then the next person would do it. And again, it's crazy how fast that changes things.
Yeah, no, I really like that, because it's one, you have a system in place too, that's that little reminder, right?
Yeah.
But pulling that right audience that's natural, that people naturally connect and support and lift others, no matter what their position is. But then having the tool that is in the background, that's the reminder, because as we all know, we get stressed, we all have a lot of things going on. We have good intentions, but we don't always necessarily put a system in place that's going to help us. So you put a system in place, you were the driver or the push or the nudge, I guess, whatever word you want to use. I'm going to call it a nudge. It sounds nicer, but that little nudge that nudged people along to, oh, yeah, I got to make sure I'm going out and being intentional about thinking, showing appreciation, simply acknowledging. And I love the idea too, you had pointed out too, and the example you gave was someone with a recipe. During this time of year, our internal group, making sure, is there your best appetizer or your best whatever, your best drink, favorite, whatever that you make. There could be some things that you could do that get people to share different things, different recipes, no matter what type it is, right? Beverages or food that, make it easier that I'm looking for, I'm looking for something I'm taking to one of the family events, right? And I just caught myself, because the one thing too that I know I catch myself on is saying I have to versus I get to. A little bit of a mind flip there, Jean, right?
Right.
But catching ourselves when we're talking to others, and that includes our family, I have to do this or I get to do this. That mindset, flipping it to I get to do this, I find personally helps me feel just more positive about it. When I have to do this, it feels like work, but when I get to do this, yeah, right. It's something I'm looking forward to. But kind of going back to getting your groups to share some things or share really good, unique gift ideas or whatever that you're bumping into. So yeah, I really like that informal influencer, being intentional about it, just to lift everyone up. That is really good, really good. Okay, Beth, that LinkedIn, what else had you thought about with that, transitioning over that question?
I love both of these suggestions. I do think that Jean's comment about training like others, like how to support you, is so huge, because, and it goes back to what you said, Michelle, like I think people have great intentions, but if they don't have the knowledge of how that support should look in this season, then everybody's kind of set up for a stressful situation. So that is, I would just advocate for that, is helping people know, like, what are those skills that managers can use to either take things off of HR's plate or to lead their team in a way that creates less HR issues down the road. Both of those things are super helpful. So.
Yes, and I would definitely agree with the helping HR down the road.
Right. Proactive, right?
Yes, being proactive. And maybe some of those things are, some things that you're approaching into 23 and having some discussions with that leadership team of what are some things that we can do, not just waiting until certain times or when we get stressed or when we have to react, but more along the lines of how do we support the people around us in different ways. Okay, well, I don't see any questions. I'm looking into the chat. If anyone, I'll give you guys just a minute, but if anyone has a question, they want to just take their microphone, turn the microphone off and shout it out too, more than welcome to opening up that way as well. I want to make sure that if there's something that you want to dive a little deeper into with a question or something that we didn't cover that you're still interested in, please go ahead and turn your microphone off, maybe pop your camera on. I know some people don't like that, but and throw that out for our panelists. We have just a couple more minutes, so see if anyone pops up. But with that, while we're kind of waiting to see if any questions populate, one question I have for the group as well, just to dive a little deeper too. But when we're thinking about the next, I wouldn't say couple months, it's really the next 5 weeks, give or take. What's one thing that you're looking forward to that you're going to be intentionally doing, whether it's with your team or it's with your family, that you can share with the group?
As a former recovering retail manager, I take the holidays very seriously now. But it kind of goes back to one of the things Jean said about, like, we have to prioritize a little bit. And so the first year that I was out of retail and I found myself with these 2 months of, like, I used to work 80 hours and now I can, like, do stuff. So what do I want to do? And so I just started making a holiday. I don't know if I called it a goals list, but it was just the things that were most important to me for the holiday. And it's not everything. So, like, I love Christmas movies and I like baking. So I would say, like, I want to watch this movie at some point in the season. And so I have found that, like, it helps you say yes to the things you really want to do. And it helps you say no to the things that are like, "Ooh, that's just more stuff on my calendar," which is hard to say no. So that has been a practice that I have done, I would say, for like 10 years now. And it sounds much more formal than it is, but I just try to like write down a list of like, and they're both dumb things, but it's like, I want to go to a restaurant and tip someone just a big amount, because that makes me feel like generous at the holidays, and they're probably having a stressful time. And one time I took donuts to a retail store, like a Walmart, that was working all those hours. So I think there's a lot of ways to like hone in on like what you actually love to do versus what everybody says you have to do. And so that has totally helped me. So I'm trying to think of one. I think I like to try new recipes. We've been talking a lot about baking, and I love to make cookies. So that's on my list this year, is to try something new in the kitchen. So
I love that, Beth. That is a really, really good idea. And, as noted, it helps you focus, as Michelle brought up, in the chat. It does, it does help you kind of follow a little bit what Jean had said, but put some boundaries. You've identified those things that are important to you. So you're looking for those. And when things don't necessarily align with what you've identified as being important, you can say,
easier to say no. It's not easy, but it's easier at that point.
It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. Let's all practice saying no together on this day.
Thank you, but no.
No. I'm not going to this year. Thank you, though. Yeah. See, look how polite we were just there.
Yes, that was sounding good.
And we don't have to give, like Jean had said, we don't have to give a reason.
Yeah.
Which I think is so important as well.
Mhm.
Because we definitely at times feel compelled to give a reason on why we can't do something. Okay, Beth or Jean, anything that you're looking forward to or over the next 5-6 weeks?
Well,
Vacation?
I did something. Yeah, vacation. I, along the same lines, I am really bad at like making excuses to not take time off. And we go on a trip to Costa Rica every year. So I usually take that week off, but then I feel guilty about taking any other time. And I've just decided, no, I'm not going to do that this year. I'm going to take the week between New Year's and Christmas. My team's got it. We're staff. So that was unfortunately a bigger move for me than it needed to be. But
good for you, though. That's great.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yes, that is. And yes, with everything you've got going on too. That's really good. Really good. Jean, how about you?
Oh, I think it's really probably more natural conversation now between me and the members of my immediate family, is that just having a conversation about what's important, what do you want to do, how do you want to celebrate as a family. And we've got our oldest daughter just got married last year, so there's in-laws that need to be visited, that live in Las Vegas, so, and it's just being okay with that. If it's not on Christmas Day, that's okay. Is what's the priority again? Just like you were saying, what's the priority is that we find some time together, and that's what that focus is. But yeah, really, what like you said, what everybody else tells you is a priority isn't often a priority for your family when you're trying to create the most enjoyable Christmas possible. They really don't care whether you eat off grandma's fine china, that can't be put in the dishwasher. That was a bad example because I would never do that in the first place. But
Great example.
those kinds of things. So there's my girls aren't interested in making 8 dozen frosted sugar cookies. So why do I feel like it's necessary? So just having that conversation and talking about what do we really want to accomplish and enjoy together as a family. I think it'd be really crucial.
Well, and Jean, I love the question you proposed. It was, how do you want to celebrate the holidays? So it's phrased in a way that's very on the person. Oh, and you don't influence it either.
Mhm.
Oftentimes we ask a question and we kind of front load it with what we're feeling. So how do you feel, right? And so then it's like, okay, you kind of respond, and sometimes we respond in a way that's going to be a little more towards whatever that person's initially said. But that question, how do you, and with your daughter, I think that's a great example, who's recently married. Okay, now that you've been married, now that you're married and you've got lots of things going on, what's going to be most important to you? How do you want to celebrate the holiday? So we can talk about it, right?
Yes.
Right. Figure out what's going to be best for all of us, what's going to work. Because our goal is that we're not stressing them too. And that the way you asked that question, I thought was really good, really good. Well, I want to thank everyone, for joining us. I want to thank the panel for all your great feedback and ideas and suggestions, things that kind of get us thinking a little bit. And I definitely want to thank Haram, Sarah, and everyone for supporting us through the year. And we look forward to 2023, but everyone enjoy. We've got 2 major holidays. Everyone enjoy those holidays with families, and there could be actually other holidays I'm not considering, I apologize. But everyone enjoy the next 5-6 weeks, and remember to stay calm, think about your triggers, be prepared on how you can manage those, and prioritize what is important to you and what is important to your family. So it helps you take care of yourself first as well. And you get to spend time doing things that